Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Genesis chapter 2. And if you look at the top of my notes, I have God is Elohim. In chapter 1, that's the name for God, Elohim, the Almighty, the Creator. In chapter 2, the name of God becomes Yahweh, the Lord God. Now, in religious studies circles, some people may point out that perhaps these are two different creation stories. But if we're thinking contextually, and if we're thinking about the scriptures as redemptive revelation, then we have to think about chapter 2 in that context. Chapter 2 is a story of God's covenant with humanity, particularly with Adam. Adam is going to be the first human, and he is also representing all of humanity. Basically, when you say represent, you're saying, you are going out for us. So Adam literally represented humans. What he does falls on all of us. So if he obeys, then yay, we're all established in righteousness. If he disobeys, then humans have fallen with him. So this chapter 2, rather than a different creation account, is a focus upon God's relationship with the humans. So the Lord God, Yahweh, is the name of God in covenant with humanity. And the covenant has a purpose. And the purpose is to establish humankind in righteousness. All right, so let's begin. And I also should mention this. These couple lines here should probably go with chapter 1. Even though there's a chapter 2 here, these chapter verses and numbers are put in later in the history of Christianity by some monastics who were trying to find a way to organize the scriptures for reading and memorization. So these verses and chapters aren't original. And this little break here where it says Adam and Eve, this part really should go with chapter 1 because it's a summary of what happened in chapter 1. So I should have read these 3 lines with the last video. So let's look at it. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. So all the vast array is all the numbers of kinds of beings that there are. It's the doctrine of the fullness of creation, or the plenitude principle of creation, that God made such variety of things. It's a full revelation of his glory. All right. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the 7th day, he rested from all of his work. And God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. So this is going to become the Sabbath day. God wasn't tired. He didn't rest because, creation is such hard work. He rested as a symbol, an example for the humans. God created and rested from his work of creating. God's work is creation and upholding the creation. This work of creation is complete. Again, this goes counter to the evolutionary account where creation is ongoing. Things are continuing to evolve. But this Sabbath day says, nope, creation is complete. God isn't currently creating things anymore. He's upholding it, he's sustaining it, but he isn't creating anymore. And he's resting from that work. Now this is a symbol for the humans. They are to follow this pattern of work and rest. And again, it's not because we're tired at the end of the week. We need a day off. It's a pattern. God worked and he rested. God created to reveal his glory. Humans work to understand the created order and develop it and rule over it. And in doing that, they come to know God. So God reveals, humans uncover the revelation. We understand the things that are made. Things have natures, and those natures are meant to be understood. And I will show you that in the work that Adam's doing. So the Sabbath day is a very important day. It gives the humans a reminder of their origins. They were created in the image of God. Their work, they're to have dominion and rule over the created order, and their destiny and their hope. One day, their work of naming things will be over. And that's when the work of dominion is completed. So the work of dominion will be complete. Okay, that's going to come up later when we talk about the Sabbath day. But notice, he blessed the seventh day and made it holy. This is before the fall. And he is giving them a symbol, a sign, part of the covenant, that God is going to bring it about to be sure that this work he's given them is completed. I'm saying that because the fall is going to come in, and this is going to become much more complicated. So notice, how are they to know God at this point? God isn't speaking to them. They're to know God through the works of God, the revelation of God in the created order. So creation is the sole source of revelation at this point. Okay, now maybe this is where chapter 2 should officially begin. When the Lord God, Yahweh, made the earth and the heavens, no shrub of the field had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant of the field had yet sprung up. The Lord God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no man to work the ground. But streams came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. Okay, so the water seems to be coming up from inside the earth to water. Not raining, but coming up from inside. And the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. All right, so we saw in chapter 1 that God created them male and female, but here we get a more specific description of the creation of the man. And then we'll see how the woman is taken out of the man. And notice how he's created. It's not the way other animals are created. The Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. So he's not alive until he has this breath that comes directly from God. And man became a living being. So man is a body-soul unity. This breath of life is the life of man, that it makes him different than other animals. This is the rational part of human life, the spirit that animates the body, the part of us that does the work of dominion, that rules. Now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. And the Lord made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground. Okay, let's pause here for a second. So we have this garden in the east, and he put the man there. And there's all kinds of trees that grow out of the ground. And notice this. Trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. That's going to be important when it comes up later. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So let's think about this for a moment. Two trees. This one is the tree of life. This is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And we're going to find out that this is the good. This is the way of the good. This is the way of death, evil. Life, death, good, evil. Tree of life, tree of the knowledge of good and evil. These trees have spiritual significance. They are two ways before all of us all of the time. And They're symbolic. We're going to find out in the scriptures that things that are visible reveal invisible realities. So these two trees are visible trees, but they represent spiritual realities, the way of life and the way of death. So also we have a choice between two ways. All right, a river watering the garden flowed from Eden, and from there it divided. It had 4 head streams. The name of the first is the Pishon. It winds through the entire land of Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Aromatic resin and onyx are there also. The name of the second river is the Gihon. It winds through the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris. It runs along the east side of Asher. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. Okay, so we have 4 rivers. And I imagine these rivers are going in 4 directions. Eden is the geographical center of the world right now, in terms of the drama of humanity, and in terms of the garden is here, and everything is going out from the garden, filling the earth. Humans traveled along waterways. So this is probably the way human civilizations were going to spread, according to these waterways. So we have Eden as the geographical center, and it's going to be the spiritual center of this test that Adam is going to have. Adam is going to be the representative head for all of us. He's going to undergo a test, and the 2 trees are there. So we already have a hint about this test. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. So notice he's given work to do. And the Lord God commanded the man. So here's a command, a direct command of God. You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For when you eat of it, you will surely die. All right, so sometimes people think, well, knowledge must be evil because, look, God's telling him not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So knowledge must be bad. Or he didn't know good and evil before he ate of this tree. Well, think about this. It's the knowledge of good and evil, and what is it contrasted with? The knowledge of good. What does it mean to know good and evil? We're going to find out that they're going to reject the way that's determined for their kind, and they're going to put themselves in the place of God to determine good and evil for themselves. So they want to be like God. So I'm just giving you a heads up because some people are like, well, look, he didn't know good and evil. He could know good and evil, and I'll make that point as I go along here. But notice, the day for when you eat of it, you will surely die. There's an inherent connection here, and it can't just be like this magical fruit. When you eat it, you're dead. The visible reveals the invisible. The Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." So notice this is the first thing that's not good. He's already doing his work, and in the context of that work, it's not good for him to be alone, probably because he has to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, and how's he going to do that all by himself? So God is going to make a helper suitable for him. Now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the beasts of the field and all the birds of the air. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them. So notice his work is in naming things. And whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds of the air, and all the beasts of the field. And he's probably naming things according to their kind, their nature. He's grasping what its nature is through an activity of the mind, and he's naming it. And the names are not arbitrary, as we'll see when he names the woman. It's according to its nature. So does he understand things? Does he have knowledge before he eats of the tree? Yes, he does. He understands the nature of things because he's naming things. And so can he, if he knows the nature of the thing, can he know what's good for the thing and what's evil for the thing? Let's say he names the horse and he names the rabbit. Would he know that good for the rabbit is according to the nature of the rabbit? Good for the horse is according to the nature of the horse, and you wouldn't want to treat the rabbit as you would treat the horse, and you wouldn't want to treat the horse as you treat the rabbit. He would know that. So we have to think of good and evil as good is according to the being's nature, kind, and evil is what is contrary to its kind. In that sense, Adam would also know his own kind, his nature, and he would know what is good for his nature and what is evil, harmful for his nature. He would know that before he even named the woman. So let's see his naming of the woman. But for Adam no suitable helper was found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. And while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. Let's pause here and notice the way in which the woman is created. She is taken from him. So when we have Adam, he has both male and female in his person, and she is separated out of this person. So subsequent creation is by separation. So male and female are one. God separates them out into two people. Two principles are in one. God separates them out into two people, male and female, and they are to be helpers. She's to be his helper, and she's taken from his rib, which is the middle part, not his head, not his feet. She's taken from the rib, which is symbolic of equality. They are equally human. Male and female have equal humanity. They have equal contribution to the work of dominion. They are equally responsible. They equally can know good and evil. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh." So notice he's recognizing her nature. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. So he is naming her according to her nature. Woman, out of man. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they will become one flesh. So notice, two principles were in one person. God separates them out into two people, and those two people are to come together again as one. This is marriage, the marriage covenant. And this is a higher kind of reality than just man. That's not male or female. He's both. Now you have male and female, which is more diverse and allows for relationship and greater unity. It's also going to allow for strife and greater division, but this is part of that plenitude principle in the creation, that God makes many kinds, and in humanity he makes humans the kind of beings that can relate with one another, and they can be fruitful and multiply, not just in a way that fills the earth, but that they are knowers and they are developers together. Alright, and the last thing I want to point out in this chapter is the man and his wife were both naked and they felt no shame. Okay, so that's important. They felt no shame. Again, there's no evil, there's no natural evil, no moral evil, no evil at this point. When we get to the end of chapter 3, we're going to summarize 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to hold off right now on some of the main points we've seen, but anticipate a summary is coming. I'm going to pause here, and then we'll go into chapter 3.